Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to be here today as we kick off our first user group webinar of 2020 for users of our Ledgeview CRM for oil and gas solution that's powered by Microsoft Dynamics 365. I'm also excited to be able to share with you the future of the solution as we take a look at the brand new unified interface that will be rolling out to everyone this year. Now, this new navigation and user experience is a pretty big change, so it's really important to encourage all your CRM users at your organization to check out this webinar and some future ones. Now, just to back it up a bit, for those that don't know me, I'm Chad Collette. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Ledgeview Partners. Many of you may know me from previous webinars and all that information I send you via email, which hopefully you're not only receiving, but you also find valuable. Now, before we get into the core of today's webinar, I have just a couple standard housekeeping items that I want to cover. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. Now, all attendees will receive a follow-up email from me after the webinar is complete with a link to access the webinar on demand. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure you add ledgviewpartners.com to your safe senders list to ensure that you get all of our communications. And if you happen to find us in the clutter, junk, or spam, please mark us as safe sender. Now, we encourage you to share any of our resources within your company and also refer us to other lubricant marketers you may know. Our goal is to grow user adoption within the CRM for oil and gas solution and really help marketers achieve the greatest ROI possible. Now, to ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you have a question or comment, we do encourage them. Please submit those in the question pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will definitely follow up with you afterwards as we do have a full agenda to cover today, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Now, with those items out of the way, I want to welcome today's presenter and a man that really needs no introduction, Steve Reybrock from Ledgeview Partners. I'm sure a large portion of our audience already knows Steve from being on site at your company as you came on board with CRM. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
All right, you're very welcome, Chad. Glad to be here, and that was a great introduction, and I think you nailed it where this is one of those webinars and one of these announcements that you really don't want to miss, because you could come into work one day and all of a sudden, what in the world happened to my CRM? So we're going to continue to make announcements, send emails. We'll probably even do another couple webinars just on this topic. So this is the first time we're talking about this new unified user interface. I just call it the new UI. That's really the main topic for the agenda, but as most of you who've attended these webinars before know, there's a couple other things that we cover. I just want to give you a quick update on the kind of the roadmap, how our enhancement list is looking. There was one submitted question I'll cover. I'll touch on biggest challenges. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of some training options that happen when you ask us to add a new user. Talk about some resources that are available, and just remind everybody about our referral program. So let's get started. Let's talk about this new user interface. I just have one slide on this, and I'm going to spend most of my time right in CRM showing you. But this new user interface was announced by Microsoft, I want to say later last year, letting everybody know this is coming, And we've done some testing, some playing, some adjusting. We've been at it for a few months already, and we have a little bit to go, but we're feeling pretty good that we're hoping we can start, feel comfortable rolling this out, maybe starting in April, maybe May. But we definitely have to be done by October, because if we don't get done by October, Microsoft is just going to automatically flip the switch. So we're going to get it done and roll it out when we feel comfortable with it. All right, I mentioned earlier there will be more communication over the next few months. Want to make sure everyone on your team is aware that this is coming. And maybe just to take a step back and talk about, why is Microsoft even doing this? What's the whole goal here? Because they make changes once in a while and you just kind of scratch your head. Well, this one I kind of understand. So for all of you who've been around a while and are using, CRM on your laptop, on your PC, you're very familiar with, logging into a browser and using what we'll call like the web version of CRM. And, that works great. Everybody's used to it. And then a year or two ago, we introduced the mobile app. And that was a way to log into CRM on a tablet, a phone, like an iPad type thing through the app. And that had a completely different look and feel. And that kind of made sense to me because, you're doing this on a very small screen. It just, obviously, it has to be designed differently. Well, the goal from Microsoft's perspective, to save them time and even to save a user of CRM time, is to just have everything work as closely the same as possible. So one user interface, whether I'm working on my phone, whether in the app, whether I'm working on the web. So the issue that we are going to see here shortly is what they did is they standardized the one that they rolled out in the mobile app. So the folks who are used to the mobile app, this might not be too dramatic of what I'm going to show you, but for those of you who haven't seen that yet and are used to the way the web looks and feels, it's going to be different. It does the same thing, but they just moved a lot of the navigation around. And I had to actually write like a list of things because I'm new to it as well, just to make sure I cover as much as I possibly can. So I think that kind of covers it. The navigation is different. I'm sure it'll take a couple days to get used to. One of the problems I have is we still have the old version and we have the new version, so I'm flipping back and forth, and sometimes it just it can be like, what do I have to do again? But once you switch over, right, you'll just be on the one new interface, and so in a couple days here's where I have to go to do this. So it'll take a little bit, but you'll be fine. We do have one customer already on the new user interface, and that's because it is a new customer. And when we created their CRM, there wasn't even the option to pick the old user interface. So there is a customer using it already. So that actually helped us out a lot. It forced our hand to really get a jump on this and make sure we had everything working. All right. So that being said, I am going to flip over and show you how this new interface works. This really isn't training. So it's just kind of getting a sense for what's happening. It's kind of going to feel like training because I'm going to show you like how to do stuff. But I guess probably I would take this as just realizing that this is coming and starting to get a feel for it, because I'm sure there'll be more webinars and more videos in CRM to kind of explain this. All right, let me just flip over to CRM. So here's where I wanted to start on this. So when I log into CRM now, the first thing I get is a list of apps. I mean, I never used to get this. So the whole thing that Microsoft is working on is to just have everything be in these apps using these new interfaces. Well, we're going to try to make it real easy. I wish we could hide some of these, but depending on your security roles and whatnot, you might see some, but I'm just going to encourage everybody. I have no idea what is going to be in some of these out-of-the-box apps, and I would just kind of stay away from them. So we have our famous oil and gas CRM. So I can just click on that app, and then it's going to take me into CRM. Now, for some of you who want to save a click and have shortcuts or favorites or bookmarks, depending on what browser you have, or you have something right on your desktop, once you get there, you can just save this. This is really long URL, right? Just a web address. If you save this or bookmark this, if you go into this bookmark, it's going to take you right here into CRM. So again, that's something that I'm sure we'll cover in other webinars and other videos, but that's just an option. But otherwise, you just always want to go into the oil and gas CRM app. All right, so what is different? Well, first of all, you're going to notice there's some stuff on the left-hand side of the screen now that never used to be there. So I'm going to kind of cover that first. Most of the navigation is now on the left. It used to be up in this dark bar up here is where you kind of did everything. Well, they kind of went this way, and there's some pluses and some minuses to it. I think it's just a matter of getting used to it. So it took me a little bit, and I was frustrated early on, and then it's like, okay, I'm kind of used to it now. So it's like, man, this is kind of quick to do it this way. So I'm warming up to this whole concept. So one of the things they did is the main navigation they bury down here on the bottom left. So for those of you who are used to seeing like up here, being able to drill into like click on workplace and see all the main navigation, that just doesn't exist anymore. It's down here. So if I click on this, it's going to show me the main areas like workplace, sales, marketing, equipment tracking, all the main modules that are in our system. So as most of you spend, quite a bit of your time in the sales area, right? So I could just click on sales. And now the good news is when I do that, if it takes it, I don't, if I'm flipping around between accounts and opportunities and contacts, leads, where I do spend a lot of time in CRM doing that, I don't have to constantly go up here to sales and pick that. It's all right here. So I could just jump from opportunities to accounts just by clicking. So that's where you start though, down here in the bottom left. Where do I want to go? And then it shows you everything you can do within the sales area. So in this middle section, you'll see all these accounts and whatnot. So I think what I'll do is I'll just jump into accounts, and we'll see how that looks. So I'm now in accounts. A couple of things that are the same are things like views. So they didn't change anything with views. So right now I'm looking at a view that says my active accounts, right? And if I click on the little arrow, I get all the different views that are in CRM. So I could change this to active accounts. So that's pretty easy. That's the same. One other thing for those of you who kind of dig more into the data a little bit and do your own analysis or filtering, you used to have to go over way to the left-hand side and you could turn on filtering. Well, they just decided to basically always have filtering on. So now you have this little filter button next to every column heading automatically. So you can just make your own rules. Let's say on state, you just click on this little filter. You can make a rule and hit apply, and it'll narrow down the list, let's say to all the accounts that have a state equal to Wisconsin. So this is the same filtering. It's just you don't have to turn it on. So a very small change. I don't know, it saves a click. So because you used to be able to turn on and off filtering. Search is pretty much the same. Here's the search box. So I could search for my famous Fairview Manufacturing. Oops, if I could spell it right. So I'll search for that. That's pretty much the same. And then I'll just open up the account. So that's also the same. So you're starting to see some things are the same, but some things are just a little bit different on the navigation. Here's probably the biggest thing for me to get used to. One of the things they did is they must have got complaints about this is a form, if you will, or a screen, let's say the account screen. We had lots and lots of stuff on the account screen. So you'd know way over on the right, you'd have this scroll bar and you could just scroll down to the right section, right? You probably did that quite a bit. Well, what they did is they decided to take all of those sections and turn them into tabs. So it's basically the same data, but as an example, I could go to this additional information tab. And this would have been like the very next section that you would have seen if you would have scrolled down. So here's where you get your address information, some billing information. I think it's going to pull up a map over here if I take a little time for that to load. And I can just go from tab to tab to tab. Well, one of the things that we took advantage, we made a little change to our system to, number one, account for an issue, and number two, to just ask, to change it so it's a little bit more usable by all of you, because so many people were accessing the order history data for a customer. So what we did is we just made that the very next tab. So I could go into active order history, and this is just going to show me every single individual transaction of order history for that customer. And that looks like I haven't loaded data in about a year, because there's data, it looks like the last time they bought from me was January 22nd, 2019. So here's the tabs, right? So if you were used to scrolling down, now I can just go down to amounts. Some of you don't have data coming from your accounting system. If you don't have any dollar figures coming over to CRM and these optional fields, you probably never click on this tab. If you don't use the classification and category section, you just never click on this tab. But here's where those 6 user codes were and some classification fields. This is probably one you might use. This is where you can get to the contacts and that 12-month product summary. And based on what I just saw in order history, I'm probably not going to see much in the 12-month summary because he hasn't bought anything in the last 12 months, but these are all the contacts. So it's the same thing, except instead of scrolling down, I just have to hit the tab. So at first, this was really like a problem for me, right? I am just so used to going over here to the right and scrolling down. But after a while, I realized I'm almost always clicking on just one or two of these tabs, and it saved me a lot of scrolling. I just, boom, I was right there. So I'm actually starting to appreciate it, but it does take a while. All right. There is one other thing that most of you are probably familiar with is, if you recall, in the old way, if you went up to this navigation bar and you had a record, so you were in sales, in accounts, looking at an account, there was a little arrow here, and this is how you could go to the related records, right? Any record that could be connected to this account. It could have been activities, it could have been order history, it could have been, do they have any equipment? Well, they just added that concept to these tabs. So if you had a lot of tabs or you had a lot of related records, there's just these three dots here at the very end. And for those of you using the mobile app, you're used to the three dots. Well, if I click on that, I would see any more tabs that I might want to have access to. But really, there aren't any more tabs. They all fit exactly the way my screen is formatted. If I would shrink my screen a little bit, they wouldn't all fit. So these are all the different related records. And you probably only use a couple of these, right? But what's the one I just mentioned? Does this account have any equipment? So I could just go to the account equipment tab to see if they have any equipment. And it's not really a tab. I mean, it looks like a tab, but it's related records. So it's just going to pull up the fact that this account does have some equipment, or they've had some. Looks like they still have some. So they got all this equipment and they haven't returned it yet, or we haven't taken it back. So yep, they still have these three pieces of equipment. But now the beauty is I can just go to another tab, right? I don't have to change anything. It's all the same, whether it's a separate tab or it's a related tab, a related record, if you will. What else did I want to cover? I think the last one that I haven't spent a ton of time on this. And this actually may have been buried somewhere even in the old user interface. But when I go to notes, seems to me we used to just be able to, they added a couple features here, but down in the notes section, there's an easy way to add a note, but they added this timeline feature, which is just a place where it's kind of grabbing information from all kinds of different areas that would have been related or connected to Fairview Manufacturing. So whether an opportunity was created or an email was sent or a task was completed, I mean, it just shows a history. So this is actually kind of cool. But if you did want to write a note, you could just start typing, just like where it says enter a note. You can just click here and just start typing a title of the note, type in the note. You have the little paper clip. So the notes is pretty much the same, but again, it's the tab that typically was way down on the bottom of the screen. And I'm kind of liking this timeline thing. So anyway, that's that. And again, you can just jump from tab to tab. All right, so check on all of that. So a big difference, navigation on the left, where the main navigation is. Opening up a record is pretty much the same, but once you get to a record, if it had a lot of tabs, you're not gonna do much scrolling anymore. You're gonna use tabs. All right, let's jump over to leads. And now again, this is the cool part, right? I don't have to go up here and go to sales and go to leads. It's just right here. So just boom, one click and I'm over to leads. So again, it's frustrating at first, but I'm starting to like it. So one of the things for you mobile users, this is kind of familiar to you, but I'm just going to grab any old lead that I have out here. So hopefully there's nothing wrong with this one. They're kind of old. So I'm opening a record, and one of the things I noticed with leads is there really weren't any sections on the lead form. So what does that mean? That means except for notes, I should say, and related records, which not too many people spend a lot of time there. But basically, there's no tabs. Everything that we wanted on the lead form actually just is still on one screen. So there is a little bit of scrolling because it's not broken down into sections. I mean, we could do that, but I think you pretty much need to, you need access to all of it, right here. So there's not a ton of stuff. So what's different? First of all, you'll see this sales process is a little bit different, right? It looks different. So, and actually this was a bad one. I'm going to actually go back to my lead. I'm just going to go back and grab the other one. I think I was playing around with this one, and I don't want to use this one. Because what I wanted to show you is how you qualify a lead, and that one looks like somebody was playing around with quite a bit. So hopefully nobody messed with this one. Because if you remember, to qualify a lead, there was a question on here that said qualify no, and that's all you did was change that to yes and hit save. Well, now that question is kind of hidden, and it's hidden behind the bullseye. So I created this lead, and now so now I did a little research, and I want to qualify it. Disqualifying it is the same. There's an option up here, but to qualify it, I actually have to click this little bullseye. And that opens up a question, hopefully, says, and here's that question: do you want to qualify it? Now, I've done a teeny bit of testing on this. We have a lot of customization behind this. As you know, when you qualify a lead, it qualifies the lead, creates an account, a contact, an opportunity, and opens up the opportunity. So I'm still doing it the current way, where you change this to yes. So you click the little box, change it to yes, and then I hit save. Now, I think human nature is going to have people change this to yes and hit next stage. So we're working on making sure if either we're going to take this button away if it doesn't function properly, or we're going to make sure by clicking next stage, it's the same as doing the save. Because you're really not going to the next stage in the sales process. You're qualifying this lead and then creating an opportunity that's going to go through this sales process. So the lead is going to be done. So that's why in our current system, you just say yes and save, and then you're really done with the lead. So I just want to make sure everybody's, comfortable, especially new folks, that you're really not taking this lead to the next stage. You're qualifying it and creating an opportunity. So I just don't want there to be any confusion where, you're over here and people might still think they're working on a lead. Well, you're not going to be. So anyway, that's a big change there. So just how you qualify a lead. So I'm just going to close out of this. So you can either click the bullseye again, or I could have hit that X. So again, just kind of warming you up to some of the changes. They're not drastic, but you're kind of seeing it. So now I'm going to jump over to opportunities, and here's where it's a little bit more drastic. Again, with the tabs and with that sales process. No, yep, I don't want to make these changes, so I'm fine with that. I do notice things run a little bit slower when I have GoToMeeting running, so apologize for that. So hopefully I'll grab a decent opportunity here. So I'll just pull up any old opportunity. Hopefully there's nothing wrong with this one. All right. So when I open up an opportunity, you're going to see that sales process again if everything is good with this opportunity. So to advance an opportunity through the sales process, again, the old way, you used to just answer a question and hit next stage. Well, they're giving us some real estate back, basically some more room on the screen. So if I'm in qualify stage, it says I've been in qualify stage for 35 days. I hit the bullseye. I say, I am ready. I'm starting to meet with the customer, whatever your business rules are on moving it to the next stage. So you just answer the question and then hit next stage. And that's all it's going to do is make sure all the required fields are filled in. And then it's going to take this little circle and it should fill it in. And then come on. And then move the opportunity over to sales stage 2. And if you're ready to, maybe you boom, you want to move it again, you're right here. Otherwise, you can just close this out. Again, I hit the X here, or I could hit the bullseye. So that's how, managing your pipeline, at least the stages. So, it's not like we spend a ton of time advancing the sales stage. So I kind of like the fact that they saved us some real estate, but it is one extra click then, right? So you got to click the circle first to answer the question. And the same holds true. I could click this, and then there's the back button. I could go back a stage if I wanted to. So that's that. And then the other thing you'll notice is the tabs, right? Here's all. I don't even have any scrolling to do here. Here's the main information about the opportunity. The other part that's really important would be like the next section, which is where you're going to keep track of, how big of an opportunity is this, any status comments, estimated close date. And you might not even jump to a lot of these other tabs. So I mean, if you want to make a quote for the opportunity or an activity, you'd have to do that. But maybe some of these you just don't even use, so you don't even care. So I don't know, it saves the scrolling, and I'm kind of getting used to just clicking around in here. All right. The other thing that I wanted to point out, similar to like Excel and Word and other Microsoft tools, it does keep track of recently viewed. So if I've been playing with some of these leads or some of these accounts or some of these opportunities, and I'm off of that now, I went somewhere else. I could go back and find it the old way, or I could just go to this recently viewed, and it will show me some records or some views, anything that I've looked at recently, down to dashboards. It just keeps track of where I've been, so boom, I can just go right there. So I'll just minimize that again. The other thing you can do is you can pin things. So if you have certain records that you want to pin, they can, so you could go to something that was recently viewed and you could pin it. So there's that pinning. I don't know how many people will use that, but that's another thing that you can do. The other thing that I don't do really at all, because I kind of like this doesn't take up too much room, but if you're really sick of this navigation, you can shrink it just a little bit. So if you hit these three little lines, what it'll do is it'll compress the navigation. So if you're comfortable with just the icons, great. I'm not I'm not used to all of this yet, so I just leave it expanded. But maybe as you get used to it and you only use a couple things here, it's like, wow, I'm even going to get more room on my screen. So that's up to you. All right. So now I want to just show you a little bit, just some other areas. I'm just going to jump into dashboards. And to do that, guess what? I have to know how to navigate to the workplace. And again, that's down here in the bottom left. So my dashboards, I find them I find it easier to find them in the workplace area. So when I go to workplace, this little middle section here on the left-hand side changes now. This is what I can do in the workplace area. I can look at dashboards, run reports, look at videos. All right, so I'm just going to go into dashboards, and I would say they look a little bit different. I'm not completely impressed with how they look. I'm used to the other ones, but it's just probably getting used to it, and I'm becoming more and more comfortable with how they look. Some of you have a ton of data, whether it be a ton of users. You have a lot of data where you've got old records over so many months. And so some of the charts I've seen when I log into some of your CRMs there's just so many bars. It's just so hard. And there was in the old system an expand button, but this one is a lot better. So what I can do is, if this chart was too scrunched, it just had too much data on it, too many bars, if I expand it by hitting this expand button, it will use up all this real estate. So it really expands it for me. So for some of you who are kind of tired of so many bars and it's just so unreadable, this might help. What I mean, then you can just close it out if you want, and it just kind of slides it back where it originally was. So the dashboards they do look a little bit different. But if you hit the little arrow, these are the list of all the dashboards. So you could pick any one of the dashboards. They're all basically still the same. They just look a little bit different. The other thing that I noticed, what I know I've trained many of you on, is if you want to drill into this data, you can go in and say, put the data next to the chart. And when you did that in the past, it opened up the chart over here and put the data to the left. Well, now I think it does it in reverse. So if I go over here to these more commands and I say view the records, that's basically just going to show me the records next to the chart, but it's going to put the chart to the left and the data to the right. The other thing that it took me a while to get used to, which I still don't like, but what I'm finding is I end up using the back button in my browser a whole lot more than I used to. Because what just happened when I said, show me the records, I happen to be looking at a dashboard, a chart of opportunities. I'm not even in the workplace anymore. Look, it took me to sales and opportunities. It shows me that up here. So I'm looking at this chart, and I'm looking at the opportunities that made up that chart. In the past, it kept me like right in dashboards. So when I'm done with this, I typically would have to hit the back button to get back to workplace and the dashboard. But maybe this is good. But so most of you know, if you want to drill into this is how you do it, and you could just click, let's say, on the fuel opportunities, and then it's just going to narrow down this list to show me it's taking a little bit of time, but it's going to show me just the opportunities that are in the fuel department. So it basically should narrow down the list. And then from there, I could even make a chart of that. So that all works the same, but it just narrowed this down to just my 15 fuel opportunities. So that's that. And yeah, I'm just going to see what the back button does here. So every browser is a little bit different, but in the past, I would have just closed out of that. That would have opened up another window, and I would have been back to my dashboard. Well, now I just hit the back button, and I'm back to where I was, or I could just navigate to wherever I want to be. But it is kind of interesting how the navigation is just slightly different enough where you gotta, oh man, how did I get here? But we'll all get used to it. And then the good news is, for my kind of outlook in the future on this is, I think almost our full-blown, with some exceptions, CRM has a much better chance of working on a mobile device, because that's the whole goal here, is one user interface. So for those of you who are using our mobile solution right now, we created a kind of a miniature version of our CRM that does the main things you'd want to do on a phone out in the field, right? Leads, opportunities, contacts, activities, notes. So we're still going to have our mobile app, but this app might also work on a mobile device. So if it does, right, and we haven't tested that, we haven't gone that far yet, but if it does, right now, some folks have asked for a little bit more functionality on the mobile app. Well, it's like the same thing, right? It doesn't matter if I'm using it on my browser or on the app, if you will, on an app on a phone or whatever. Okay, so yeah, that's my last bullet here. Was I do find myself using the back button on my browser a lot more than I used to. I hardly ever did that using CRM, because I could just navigate up here where do I want to go, and I would just do a couple clicks and get wherever I want to go. So all right, well, that's it. Let's flip back over to the PowerPoint if I can get there and see what else we have. So as far as our roadmap goes, just real quick on this, this analysis and development on this new user interface is taking much longer than all of us had hoped, but we're getting there. Obviously, you can see by what I just showed you, so we're close. We have a little bit more tweaking to do, and then a lot of planning to do to how to deploy this, because I don't think we want to spring this on every single customer, over one weekend. So we might do like a couple customers, 1 week, and a couple customers the next week, and then maybe 5 or 10 the following week. We just have to see how this goes. So that's kind of the big thing for the next couple months for us, really. We do have a couple small changes and requests that I want to kind of sneak in here in the next couple months as well. So you'll be seeing that. Then, as some of you have seen this before, this has kind of been on our list to give you the ability to schedule reports with Dashboard 97. Still doing some research on seeing if this mobile app can work offline. And again, I don't think Microsoft is spending a lot of time on that. They were working on this user interface just like we are. There is an issue with this technical term called API calls, and that's a big deal for us. Which could end up being a big deal for you, but we're going to try to figure out how to avoid that. But Microsoft is starting to charge for these API calls if you do too many of them. And so we're going to be doing all kinds of analysis to see, what buttons cause API calls, and how many does each of our customers use, and do we have a problem or not? So we'll be working on that. And then I'm going to probably have another list of small changes to get out, and then probably, whatever the next big thing is. So that's kind of our plan. This is probably going to take us, all of 2020 to get through all this good stuff. There was one question submitted. It said how I would like some additional information on how best to utilize CRM to help me create quotes for customers. So my first answer on that would be to see your power user or your manager. And the reason I'm kind of deflecting a little bit is each of you, when you worked with me to set up CRM, might have decided not to use the quote feature. So I could point you to a video, which there is a video in CRM that walks you through how to create quotes. But if your CRM wasn't really even set up for that, because that was just a business choice, well, then you're not going to have much luck. So start internally. And if you need me after you talk to your power user or manager on using the quote feature, just let me know. And there were a few other things that were submitted under biggest challenges that really could just go directly to our support desk. They weren't submitted as questions, just under biggest challenges. So if you have anything, right, you don't have to wait for this webinar. Just reach out to your power user first is where I would go, because usually internally they know. But if between you and your main folks internally can't figure it out, just give our support team a call or drop them an email. All right. This is so funny because I look at all the registrations, and I would say that the biggest challenges have not changed at all. I was a little bit pleased where there's significantly more biggest challenges that are either blank, like a period, an NA, or none at this time. So I was pleased to see that. But if I looked at those that were submitted, where people actually filled something in, it was user adoption and time. And then probably neck and neck with that was just, I'm new to CRM, I need more training. So again, if internally that's not working for you, we can offer more training as well. But find your manager, find your power user. Hopefully you guys are starting to have like training for new folks so they know how to use this system. But if not, we're here as a resource. This is just a reminder that when we add a user to your CRM for you, we do trigger this training via email, and that's all it is. It's really simple, but the system just basically sends out 3 emails each week for 2 weeks. So basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's just a little email that describes a feature or two, points them to a document or video or two, just to kind of welcome a new CRM user to CRM. So that's just a reminder on that. There's also resources not only within our oil and gas CRM where you have videos and documentation. There's all kinds of good stuff on our main Ledgeview Partners website. And then this referral program, actually, it's been successful. Folks have referred folks, and they've turned into customers of ours. So if you do know of anyone who you think could use our CRM, if you introduce them to me, I'll work with them, and if they end up getting our system, your company will get a $1,000 bonus, $1,000 credit, and you will get a $25 gift card. So, all right. If you need anything else, this is just some contact information I'd probably just put on the display here while Chad is wrapping things up, and I'll apologize for going a few minutes over. Chad, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. A lot of good information. I hope everybody is excited about the new unified interface. And as Steve said, it'll take a little bit of getting used to, but there's been a lot of really good feedback and some buzz about it from Dynamics users all over the world using it. So looking forward to that. Again, if you have any questions, our support team is here to assist you. We want to make sure that you're getting high user adoption and getting the most out of CRM that you possibly can. So that's a wrap for today. Look for your email to get a copy of this on demand and make sure to share with others in your organization. There's also going to be a survey as you log off, just asking about future training topics, because we'd love to hear what you'd like to find out later this year. So thank you very much and have a fantastic day.